and we should be live now.
Right.
Okay, so we can still talk, okay, and chat. We don't have anybody. Well, actually, we do have a few people there, but they're not indicated on the indicator. A real progressive's somebody. I don't know who that is because we have a number of people, including myself, who are under that label.
Yeah.
Says free your mind and the rest will follow. And then we're getting a welcome from James.
10.
Scarborough says, thank you, Mark. Yeah, we may be up to 10 now. Let's see what it says. Yeah, it says we are up to 10 now. So I'll wait just a little bit longer, and then I'll start the introduction.
Mm-hmm. It's all going remarkably smoothly at the moment.
Yes, I wonder when the other shoe is going to drop. Oh, God. Funny.
Although it's, we do get a little bit blasé about the fact that we're now talking across continents in real time and sharing it with dozens of other people. Which is actually a remarkable technology.
Yes, and 5 years ago, we would have thought it was remarkable. Okay, it's amazing how quickly we adapt to new technology.
It is, and we get used to it, and we get blasé. You know, the lights switch on, the water runs, and we can talk across continents and not think about it.
Yes, and then we start to cuss it out.
It's funny, actually. I think it's 30 years this year since I actually first got on the internet and on Usenet and ended up talking to people from America and Australia directly, you know, in almost real time, using little text messages at that particular point in time. We thought that was marvelous. That was like fantastic. Wow. Wonderful.
That's right. And now half our lives are spent on the internet.
It is. It's funny, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Funny how things go.
Funny and remarkable.
Yep.
Okay, I think I'm going to formally start.
Right.
Okay. So I want to welcome everybody. This is Joe Firestone for Real Progressives on Saturday night at 8 p.m. And my guest for tonight is Neil Wilson, who's a systems engineer from the UK, and who's an expert on the job guarantee and on MMT in general. He's a veteran, okay, of MMT, who's been around MMT circles since late 2009 and early 2010, just about the same amount of time that I've been involved, okay, in MMT. And in fact, I started to see Neil making comments on Bill Mitchell's blog back in 2010. Okay, and he's always had an abiding interest in the job guarantee. His comments and blogs on the job guarantee have been among the most insightful there are. And recently, at least I think it's recently, I began to see it recently in 2017, he has stepped up his game on the job guarantee, where I believe that he has a quite original perspective on it. I've tried to give you secondhand some of the perspective, okay, in my live streams on it, but he's now here. He's been kind enough to join us and to give you his perspective directly tonight. So I want to welcome him to the show. Okay, and I want to make sure we both are visible because I haven't actually hit my show buttons. I've just assumed that we're visible. But here are our show buttons now. Okay, so the question is, does Neil Wilson have a Facebook or a Twitter account?
Yeah, I have a Twitter account, which is nice and straightforward because I was in Twitter straight away, which is at Neil Wilson. There you go. One of the advantages of being a tech guy is you get to know all the cool stuff coming out before everybody else does. We're both here, apparently. That's good news.
Yes, people are saying you both are there, and I think everybody can hear us well. And so, what I'd like to do at this point is to ask you to give an introduction.
Okay.
In other words, to give us your ideas on what the job guarantee would be like if it were an MMT version of the job guarantee.
Mm-hmm.
And if it worked the way you see it working, not just from the outside in, but from the inside out, the inner life of the job guarantee, of how it works and how the people in it would actually relate to it and how they would feel when they were in it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're coming at it from the perspective of a person on the job guarantee. Is that the perspective you're looking for?
Yes, that's the perspective. Okay, that I'm looking for. What would it look like to a person who was in the program? Okay.
Well, that's fairly straightforward. It would look like a job. That's the essence of the job guarantee, is that it is a job. It is a real, genuine pucker job. What you are doing is you are working for the public good at the living wage in your local area at a socially standard, in a socially standard way. So what the job guarantee is the job that you would want if you were currently unemployed, and it's just what you would like to do during the day. What you're trying to do is you're trying to serve others. That's the essence of the job guarantee. It allows you to give up your hours to serve others. So when you're sat in there on the job guarantee, it just feels like another job. You go out, you go to work, you come home, you get to the end of the week, you get paid. You get paid at a living wage. That's
okay. Well, now I have a question. Okay, an immediate question, which is, there are so many people I know, and I'm sure you know also, okay, who work in the private sector, okay, and they're earning a living in the private sector, but they're not doing what they want to do.
No, that's right.
They're just doing a job in the private sector because that's the job they were able to get with their particular skills at a particular time.
Yeah.
Okay, but you think that someone working on the job guarantee would be working on something they want to do, which I assume would be consistent with their ideas about what is socially good and valuable.
That's right. That's right. That's absolutely right. What we've got is a shortage of jobs. And when you've got a shortage of jobs, you end up naturally with a set of people who are doing a job they don't want to do. We've got a lack of liquidity in the job market. So what job guarantee does is it creates an infinite amount of liquidity in the job market, which means that people move around. So somebody who's currently doing a job they don't like doing can now go and get a job that they do like doing, freeing up that job for somebody who might like that job. So the whole system sorts itself out once you've got the right amount of liquidity. The reason why lots of people are stuck in jobs that they don't like doing at the moment is because there aren't enough jobs to go around. So we just need to fix that problem, creating enough jobs to go around, and it should largely sort itself out. Now, the job guarantee competes with the private sector in terms of providing a job that the private sector then has to compete with. So it's got to up its game. All of a sudden, it's having to deal with another employer that's possibly offering better terms, nearer to where the person lives, working normal hours, 9 to 5. I don't know what your standard week is, but let's be really optimistic and say 35 hours a week.
Okay, let's say that.
35 hours a week. That's what we aspire to over here. I know you guys, might want to get down to somewhere near 40 to start with, but we're a little bit further along the lines. 35 is our target.
Yes, you are more fortunate, than we in that respect. I think almost everybody in the world is more fortunate than the people who live in the United States in relation to that.
So that's it.
At least in the modern world.
Yeah, that's right.
Industrialized world.
The lack of jobs creates this overwork problem. And it's the one thing that the minimum wage doesn't fix. Just segueing across to that. The minimum wage only sorts out the amount of money that you get paid per hour for working. It doesn't sort out all the other things, which in certainly in US terms is things like the benefits, like healthcare and pensions and then the other insurance things that you need that the rest of the world sorts out socially. But it's vitally important that the audience realise that the job guarantee is there to compete with the private sector. The private sector has to extract labour from the job guarantee by competing with it, by providing jobs. So once the job guarantee is there can't be any poor jobs anymore because they just get eliminated by simple competition. You don't need any regulations. You don't need any laws or anything like that. Competition sorts it out. Because very simply, if the private sector doesn't up its game and extract people from the job guarantee, it doesn't get any labour and it fails.
Okay, so a question on that, and the obvious question, I think, is, what if the private sector wants people to do jobs they're not going to like?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now they might be able to find jobs in the public sector
mm-hmm.
that they do like, but perhaps there would be a pay differential such that the private sector job paid $25 an hour, and for the sake of argument, the job guarantee social value sector job paid $18 an hour or $20 an hour or something like that.
Yeah. So it's straightforward competition. If the private sector wants the labour, it either has to pay the rate, or it has to offer better benefits, a better type of job, better training, whatever, to get the labour that it requires. If it can't get the labour, then it's got two choices, which is to either automate the job out of existence, in other words, invest some money, do a bit of capitalism, or cease to exist. Those are the two options. The job guarantee allows capitalism to go back to what it should be, which is basically the brutal system that it is. The analogy I use is the gladiator arena in Rome. It's gladiatorial combat doesn't really work very well if the winner doesn't put the sword through the loser. If you sit there and say, "Well, I'm sorry, won't you think of the jobs?" Then, "Oh, well, I won't bother." Then there's not really much of a battle going on there. If you want that system, that brutal system, then you need to let it go through to its ultimate conclusion. You've got to put the sword through the loser. In capitalism,
it seems the way it seems to work now here in the United States is that the gladiatorial system exists among the employees.
Yeah.
But not so much among the capitalists.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly the problem. I mean, it's, if we want capitalism, we want it raw in tooth. We want it to actually do its job, which is to eliminate those that are weak and allow the strong to continue. But we can't do that.
Yes, where the weak and the strong, just to be clear.
Holding all the workers hostage,
Yes, but just to be clear about it, when we refer to the weak and the strong, we mean the weak businesses and the strong businesses.
And the strong businesses. The businesses that are doing what we want, which is to invest and automate, and the rentiers and the hangers-on and the parasites all need to die. If that's the system, we want that system to work. We want the innovators, we want the automators to work, to flourish, to make profits, to make money, to be successful. Everybody seems to think that if you're an MMT person, that you don't want businesses to be successful. Of course we want businesses to be successful, but the right businesses, the ones that innovate, the ones that automate, the ones that treat their employees with respect,
Yes,
and
indeed.
that they deserve, that train, and that bring on apprentices, that sort out pensions and so on and so forth. And we want the parasite businesses, the ones that Nick Hanna calls the parasite business, we want those to die. We want them to die fast. And the job guarantee is a system that ensures that can come about.
Yes. So, but also from the standpoint of the worker, do workers in the job guarantee program actually participate in shaping their jobs in your conception of the job guarantee program?
Yeah, the way that I see it is that the way I see it with the job guarantee, you're going into a job. If you're applying for a job guarantee job, you apply for it in roughly the same way that you apply for a normal job. You go to a job centre and you say, "Well, I need a job," and they then sit there and there's a conversation that goes on. The person behind the desk is the representative of the rest of us. If you go in there and say, I want to sit at home and play Xbox all day as a job, then they're probably going to turn around to you and they're probably going to go, well, that's not really the sort of thing that society wants people to do. Have you got anything else?
For producing social value, however, to be very clear about it, very frank about it, it may be the person will be able to find a private business somewhere that's going to allow them to play games all day because they're in the business of creating games.
That's right. They may do that, but at this particular point in time, there obviously aren't enough of those positions around. So when you come to the social sector, when you come to the job guarantee sector, they're effectively saying those aren't available at this particular point in time. What other things could you do? And there's a process of negotiation to go on there. So with the job guarantee, you don't get to do whatever you want just because you've said so. It's a negotiation. And the reason for that is fairly straightforward, is that the way that human society works is that we exchange time with each other. That's what we do. If I'm going to give up my time because I'm making something producing something, then I'm going to expect you to give up your time to produce something for me, and we exchange time with each other. That's what we're doing. The job guarantee actually isn't about money, it's about time. It's about us all exchanging time with each other so that we get what we want. If ultimately the farmer in the field isn't going to work past Tuesday unless you're working as well, to give the farmer something back in return. He's just going to go home and enjoy his free time once he's made enough for himself and the people who make his machines. We need those farmers in the field making stuff for the rest of us, because we're not farmers. And the rules of specialization within economics that allow us to have an advanced production economy still apply, even though we're doing MMT and all the other magical stuff that we do out there. Is we need the specialists to work all week, and we need to give them a reason why they're working all week. And to do that, you've got to give up your time for others. I think it's that. I'll use my Ali quote at this particular point in time. I think is service to others is the rent you pay for your room here on earth. The job guarantee is a mechanism by which that allows everybody to make that rent. That's what it's about.
Right. And service to others includes service to the farmers who are producing our food in various ways.
They're producing the food, and they're working past Tuesday, which is they only need to work to Tuesday to make enough for themselves and their machine manufacturers. They could give up on Tuesday and go home, but we need those to work all week. So that we then produce a social system that provides facilities for them. So we provide roads for them, we provide teachers for them, we provide doctors for them, we provide people to stand on the corners of roads and do impromptu street theatre on the job guarantee for them. We let the job guarantee people sort out the parks so that the flowers are nice and the grass is cut. Things along those sort of lines. The job guarantee is, can encompass anything that we can that society chooses to consider to be a useful activity, something that makes people smile. Sitting there and talking to elderly people. I mean, if the farmer's elderly mother is sat in the corner, and you get people coming around to talk to her because he can't do that because he's in the field. It's that sort of social provision that we're looking at on the job guarantee that allows people to give up their time to serve others' needs.
Okay, so it's often said, in fact, I've seen it said on another group, that I'm in, that I happen to share something on the job guarantee program. I don't recall if it was news of the program we are doing right now. I think I was sharing something else on the job guarantee.
Uh-huh.
Okay, and someone commented on the post and said, the job guarantee is just bullshit jobs. It's just bullshit jobs. And he went on and on and on. And he got answered by 4 or 5 people.
Yeah.
Okay? And then he repeated himself again. And he said, bullshit jobs, bullshit jobs. And he referred people to a blog of his where he outlined why the job guarantee is full of, of bullshit jobs.
Mm-hmm.
I know you've written quite a bit about how the job guarantee would not be full with bullshit jobs. So please tell us about that.
Yeah, well, that's it. I mean, yeah, and this is the trouble that you have. I mean, ultimately, everybody needs something to do with their day. That's what we get up, we do something, we go to bed. That's what human beings are all about. There's got to be a reason to get out of bed in the morning and do something. And when you're doing something, particularly when you're doing something that you enjoy, that's when you are working. And work, in the conception that I see it, certainly under the job guarantee, is very simply leisure that you get paid for. That's how we see work. I mean, my job as a systems
conception of it too.
Yeah, my job as a systems engineer it involves something called job enrichment, which is designing and redesigning jobs. So frankly, they're less unpleasant. There's absolutely no reason on earth why any human being should get up in a morning and dread going to work. Work is actually something that brings joy and meaning to people's lives. If you don't feel that, ultimately you're in the wrong job, or you need to have a word with your employer and get them to hire me, and I'll go and sort out the jobs for them so that they're less rubbish. That's just because we haven't got a job guarantee competing out the rubbish jobs. Once we've got a job guarantee that gives people jobs that have meaning, then the private sector are going to have to create jobs with meaning if they want to get any labour at all.
So you're actually a daytime expert on creating jobs for people that have meaning.
Yeah, I do two things. One, I create jobs with meaning for people, and two, I eliminate people's jobs. My job is to automate jobs out of existence and take the ones that are left and reconstruct them so that they're better, basically, and more meaningful and more sensible, and strip them from horizontal and create them vertically and things along those sort of lines to improve the jobs that people have. I see no reason at all, none whatsoever, why people should have to sit there in jobs that they don't like. That's just a systemic failure across the whole system. We just need to get that sorted out.
Okay, can you see a place in the job guarantee program for the workers themselves to start new social value endeavors by putting together proposals to make to government for funding?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, absolutely. I mean, the system. There's lots of daft stuff written about the job guarantee, around the internet from detractors that I find a little bit less than helpful, frankly. The way the job guarantee works is it's centrally funded and it's locally managed. If it's going to work at all, it has to be constructed like that. And the job guarantee can encompass any work structure that you can possibly imagine. The one that I've put forward, I think I've got a, excuse me, the one that I've put forward that I've written about on the Medium blog is a system that involves social entrepreneurs, which are just basically people who want to do things for social value rather than profit. And what they get is, rather than money, what they get is time from all the people on the job guarantee, and they can actually use those then to create businesses of social value. And those sort of compete roughly with the market economy, where you've got market entrepreneurs trying to create profit, and the two sort of sit in tension with each other. As the profit sector grows, it takes staff away from the social entrepreneur section, and as the profit sector starts to decline, it moves back the other way. So yeah, the people can get together to create social organisations on the job guarantee. I would also see that the job guarantee would provide an enterprise allowance scheme to allow people to try out new business ideas, profit-making business ideas, so that, you know, we would sit there and say, we had a wonderful scheme back in the 1980s in the UK called the Enterprise Allowance Scheme that paid people for I think it was a period of 3 years. I think you were allowed 3 years to get a business going, and you were just paid on a weekly basis while you got yourself going. That would work on the job guarantee as well. So you could use that to seed fund profit-making businesses, so people could actually build up a business from scratch, funded on the job guarantee. That would go for a certain period of time, and then it would disconnect, and it would go on its merry way under its own steam.
Okay, and when it goes under its own steam, it is making a transition from the job guarantee sector or the social value sector to the private sector, right?
To the private sector, and
what you see the market sector,
automatic stabilizing system kicking in, where the government spending automatically backs off as the private sector increases, because you can see that there you've effectively launched a new private business off the back of the job guarantee, and then the public spending backs off, which allows it then to control inflation, because obviously the job guarantee is an automatic stabilizer. It's one of the best automatic stabilizer systems that I know, because it's spend side.
Me too. Yeah, me too. It's really a wonderful automatic
spend side. The way I see it is, it's instant, as in, when somebody comes off the job guarantee, the spending stops. When somebody goes on the job guarantee, the spending immediately starts. It starts. Okay, it's spatial. If there's somebody out of work in Vermont, it's Vermont that gets the
job
money.
Guarantee. Yeah,
that's how it works. It works spatially. It works across the currency area automatically, and it's also generational, in that there's usually a lot of young people who haven't got work, so the young people get jobs on a job guarantee. The money goes to the young. We're getting ourselves. You and I are not spring chickens anymore. And
I'm even less of a spring chicken than you are.
And we're not doing enough for our young people. Yes. The young people out there have got a right old rough time at the moment. They really haven't got anything to look forward to. The ladder's been pulled up behind them. We need to give them something back, and the job guarantee gives them the opportunity to get started, to get on there, to show that they can do something, and to provide themselves with the skills, to show that they've got the skills and the talent and the motivation, which allows them to be hired by a private, because the private sector come in and look at all these job guarantee workers and think, wow, look at all that work that's being done there. I can see that each one of these will turn up on a morning. Every one of those will turn up and they will do the job that they said they were going to do, which is a far better prospect than trying to hire somebody off the unemployment queue when you've got no idea what type of person they are at all.
Yes, absolutely. So, okay, to follow this down, you've characterized the job guarantee as spatial Keynesianism.
Yes.
Would you
Yeah.
also say that it's generational Keynesianism as well?
Generational Keynesianism as well. Yes. I mean, in some respects, it provides an automatic redistribution, if you like, well, it's not so much a redistribution; it's more that the increased production that job guarantee generates is then pushed down and provided towards the young and towards the poor, and towards areas where there's less activity. So because job guarantee works by effectively reducing the output gap, it reduces the output gap. We get more stuff made, and that stuff that's made is then pushed down to people who are young. It's pushed down to people who are poor, and it's pushed down to areas where there's less activity. All of which is generally what you want to do. So, and that does it entirely automatically. It'll allow businesses to move out to areas where there currently isn't very much activity, because suddenly there's demand there. So businesses start popping up in areas where currently there aren't any.
So they can go and satisfy the demand.
Absolutely, yeah.
You talked of the young, okay, of course, benefiting from this. But here in the United States, at least, and I suppose in the UK as well, there's a problem for people who are over 55. For people who might like to continue to work from 55 even to 75 or to 80, something like that.
Yeah,
and they can't find any private sector jobs.
No, that's right. I mean, it's one of the things that you note about countries like Japan is how much more regard they have for people who are older.
Yes.
And obviously, they've done their effectively their first career, and they probably want to downsize or downshift towards a slightly different career for later on in their lives. Nobody wants to do the same thing for years on end. I mean, I'm a contractor. I find it annoying if I'm doing the same job for more than 6 months. Never mind doing it for 60 years. It's just not a chance. Now that's because they've got a shortage of labour in Japan. Then, so once you've got a shortage of labour, then at that point in time, you have to start taking respect of people who are elderly, and they actually have job agencies that are specifically designed to get people over 55 back into work, and because there's a shortage of labour and the private sector's having to compete for people, they have to take on elderly workers, and they're older workers. So elderly workers makes you feel like you can't do anything. But older workers, and give them the retraining to do the jobs that they require.
So there will be more jobs then for older workers, both in the private sector, but if they don't want to work in the private sector, if they want to work on a public purpose job, they can have all the jobs they want under the job guarantee.
That's right, because we've finally changed the power system within the economy. We've altered the power. We haven't spoken about that yet, but the power at the moment is with the firms. The firms, because there's fewer jobs than there are people that want them, the firms have got the power, and they can effectively crush down the workers, and that's why we get terrible jobs, lousy hours, miles away from anywhere, and people being forced to chase ridiculous work all over the place. But once we've got the job guarantee in place, that switches the power around the other way. All of a sudden, now you can turn around and go, I don't want that job. I'm going to go and do this one. And the firms have to compete.
Also here too, you're talking about the inner life of the job guarantee. From the standpoint of the worker, because there are all kinds of things that workers have to do under the present system that they would not have to do under the job guarantee system. In terms of, for example, commuting, spending 2 hours a day or 3 hours a day commuting. I mean, in many American cities, if people have jobs in the city, they're traveling an hour and a half to get to work in the morning.
That's right. I mean, we have the same thing. we have the same thing in, it's mostly London over here in the
Yes,
UK,
I'm
where
sure it's
people,
in London.
and
Yeah.
all that's happened over time is it's, the circle which has become an acceptable commuting distance to London has just got wider and wider and wider and wider and wider. And that's, and so you end up with this ridiculous brain drain towards the city.
Yes,
with
yes,
nothing
yes,
to
yes.
force it out. Whereas the job guarantee, again, it solves so many problems. The job guarantee. I'm probably not doing a great job here of pointing out what the multifacets of the job guarantee are, but it's one of those remarkable systems that's like it's one stone and it kills so many birds. It's quite remarkable. And this because of the spatial Keynesianism that we were just talking about earlier on, it sort of counterbalances the gravity that you get into this, so you don't get this problem of a black hole where all the work gets pulled into one area in a nation, and it actually allows you to push it out a little bit further across the rest of the nation, and stop this problem of all the work being in one place and everybody having to come in from ridiculous amounts of miles outside of the city. Obviously,
which then causes asset inflation.
Oh yeah,
inside the cities.
Yeah, that's right.
Costs go sky high. Real estate costs go sky high. Everything goes sky high because everybody has to get to the center.
Absolutely, they've all got to get everywhere.
People have to travel to 3 hours. You have a bit of an advantage, though, in the UK, because you at least have public transportation that's pretty good there. So people maybe can get on the train and maybe read when they're going back and forth.
Yeah,
which is a problem here. We have to sit in our goddamn cars. Now, some of us are starting to solve that by doing live streams from our cars. They do live streams. They're on the phone.
Yeah, I would say the trains aren't. I wouldn't sing the praises of the UK trains too high. They're unfortunately some idiot privatise them, and then they don't tend to put enough carriages on, so you tend to be rammed in a little bit like sardines. So there's not a lot of sitting down and reading going on at 9 o'clock on a morning. I promise you, the train I went on the other day, it was absolutely rammed. They were shoving people in to get into the doors. It's
sounds like the Japanese trains.
Yeah, it's very similar to that. It's very similar to those Japanese trains where everybody's sardined on. I don't go down to London very much, but the last time I went down there, the tube trains were just an absolute, really, honestly, sardine cans have got less stuff in them. It's a crazy thing. So yeah, I'm not quite sure the job guarantee will sort out the train system. I think that might just require a little bit more in the discretionary political action category. The job guarantee is a wonderful thing, but it doesn't solve all problems.
Well, that's good to hear. We'd like to have some problems left so we could have fun solving them, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay,
yeah.
But
that's good.
To go a little further in this, while the job guarantee would allow people to stay where they are and to find work that is socially valuable where they are, it's also true that if they wanted to leave where they were, it would be much more easy for them to go to another place because there would be a job waiting for them there. Yes. And we tend to emphasize that here because given some of the environmental and ecological problems that we're getting here and the actions of business and the retreat of the enforcement of the regulatory laws here in the United States, we have many areas where there's basically toxic water, public water, being served up to the citizens, as in Flint, Michigan.
In Flint, for
example. We think many people would love to leave Flint and go to Colorado, for example. They could pull up stakes, get out of Flint, and we have a feeling the local situation in Flint would improve a hell of a lot faster if a lot of people did pull up stakes.
Leave.
Because then the tax base would be gone. If people wanted to get back their tax base, they'd have to provide pure water.
Proper water, yeah. Public water system that's
basically
designed to provide water, yeah. And that would be that's a novel idea, isn't it? Yeah. No, it's absolutely true. I mean, the job guarantee, strangely enough, actually improves the freedom of movement of the people within the country. I mean, the classic one again, using my UK example, is that all the work is concentrated in the southeast of England, near London, and yet the areas where people actually like to live are usually outside of that. And so it would be the same in the United States. I mean, obviously, you've got an awful lot more land to go at there. And if you can actually get a job in any single county across the entire continental United States, then
which you would be able to do with the job guarantee.
Absolutely, yeah, you'd be able to go where you'd be able to go where you fancy for a change, rather than being stuck where you are. And that's I would suggest that's yet another benefit of the system, is that it strangely enough provides an awful lot more freedom than certain other systems I could mention.
And speaking of those systems, and maybe shifting a little to those systems, you've had quite a lot to say over the years about the basic income idea.
Oh,
and
yes.
People like Scott Santens and
bless him. Yeah.
Yes. Bless him.
Scott Santens thinks he has a basic income. No, he's got a Patreon income like SciShow, and they think they've got a job. So one of the others wrong, and I suspect I know which one. The problem you've got with a basic income is that it destroys your spend side auto stabilizer. You don't actually have a mechanism by which government spending is provided and retreated automatically, and that's actually how you control inflation. The job guarantee is very central to the modern monetary theory of inflation. It's actually the way that it actually controls inflation. It's the buffer stock approach to inflation. There are only two approaches to inflation control. Either you make people unemployed, or you move them from the private sector to the public sector and back again. Because if you think about it, that's what you're doing. It's always the same thing. You move people from the private sector to the public sector, and you either move them from the private sector to the public sector and they're unemployed, or you move them from the private sector to the public sector and you get them to do something. You still have to pay them. So what would you like to do? The key to the job guarantee, from my perspective, is this exchange of hours idea. Basic income is only about money. If you look at it in terms of hours, it's very simple. You get paid twice, because you get to consume your own hours and consume the hours of somebody else. That's patently unfair. And over time, and it will take a little time, people will work that out and they have the system stopped, which is why every income guarantee system gets shut down. It's why student grants cease to exist here, because you don't get paid unless you've done something for it first. Even to the point of state retirement pensions. Everybody sits there and goes, well, why does the state retirement pension age go up when we've got all this automation and robots and all the rest of it? And the reason is very simple, is you only earn 20 years worth of an income guarantee. So as people live longer, then you only get the last 20 years of your life under an income guarantee, and that's payment for a lifetime of capital creation in your work and life. That's society won't stand for anything else. When you read the documents about state pensions, they talk about it in terms of afford, but it's not really afford, it's more deserve. We're a reciprocating species. I have to do something for you if you want to do something for me, if you're going to do something for me.
Yeah, reciprocity is a key value, of ours. What do you do about situations, though, where people are not able to work, either because they are truly disabled or because they're in some way psychologically disabled and do not want to work in collaboration with others for public purpose? Mm-hmm. How do you view that?
The way I see this is, I don't know what it's like in the USA, but over here, when you're at school, if you're disabled or you're unwell at school, you get a lot of support workers come around you to help you do the best that you can at school. And then we get to the end of school and suddenly all that stops. Why? Surely it should carry on into the job place to allow those people to be the best that they can in the job market and deliver what social value they can. If it takes 3 support workers to allow an individual to produce something, and so that they're happy producing something, then why shouldn't we do that? I mean, that's, you know, as you can see, that's 3 jobs there straight away. That need,
right, and it can make the support workers happy.
Yeah.
And also the disabled worker happy because they're no longer disabled.
That's right. When we've talked to disabled people, they want to work and they want to contribute to society as much as anybody else. You know, they're just ordinary people with, you know, with a little bit of difficulty. And that's the same with people who've got mental issues as well. Those are all just ordinary people with difficulties, and we should be helping them to add as much as they possibly can to society. Now, obviously, it's a continuum, and there comes a point where you've got people who are very severely disabled. Yes. Now, at that point in time, it becomes a matter of social and healthcare, as it does with anybody along those lines. And, you know, in my view, as you know, I'm a Brit. You know, we believe in public provision of these sort of things. So, yeah, once you get to a point where, you know, you've got somebody who's so severely disabled that they can't possibly do anything, then they just get looked after because, well, that's the human thing to do. But somebody who's fit and able to work, then you've got to ask the question then, society has to ask itself then whether somebody who refuses to work should receive an income, or whether those people should have to fall back on the charity of those who believe they shouldn't have to. And then it becomes a charity matter. So there's a question there of where does the social provision end and where does the charity provision take up the slack? You know, where do we draw the line? And that's actually a political decision. That's not something that I can decide. I just got to say you're going to have to draw the line somewhere. It can either be there, or it can be there, or it can be up here.
Right, but you can take a political position if you want to, right?
Yeah, I can take a political position if I want to, but I understand that there's multiple views on that particular point.
There are multiple views on that point, but for myself, I've always thought that we have now reached a point of productivity in our society that if we have some people who are so psychologically oriented that they cannot find a socially useful thing to do in a socially approved sort of work setting, that they still ought to be able to live. Mm-hmm. And we ought to allow them a certain leeway simply because they're human and we're civilized.
Yeah.
And so the way I formalize that in terms of my thinking on the job guarantee is something like the living wage on the job guarantee is probably starting to rise right now to more like $20 an hour or something like that in the United States. Mm-hmm. So I would say that people who are not able to work, for whatever reason, including psychological reasons, still have to live. And I would probably say that for me, the judgment call is they should get something equivalent to $12 an hour. That, by the way, comes to something like $25,000 to $26,000 a year, whereas Scott Santens is only proposing to provide them and also everybody else, whether they need it or not, with $1,000 a month, which last I checked only amounts to $12,000 a year.
Yeah, it's a difficult one. I mean, my particular position on this one is that you turn it over to the doctors, and and you treat them like judges, and they they make a judgment on an individual. And if a doctor says this person is unfit for work, then they are unfit for work. And if a doctor says this person is fit for work, then they are fit for work. And you treat it in a judicial manner. And what we've effectively done there as a society is delegate the authority to make the decision as to which side of whether these people are required to work or whether they are exempted from work to somebody who's effectively qualified to do so. So that's the system that I tend to work. The line I use is that everybody is required to work unless exempted by reason of age or infirmity. Age, of course, being over pension age, under at school age, or so infirm that they not so infirm that they don't have to work. That's the view I've always taken. Okay,
that sounds very reasonable, of course.
Yeah.
You once wrote a blog called "Is Basic Income Basically Theft?"
Yeah. Yeah.
What was your line of reasoning in that blog?
It's the one I used a few minutes ago. Is that basic income essentially allows you to get paid twice in real terms, in hours. When you start thinking about things in hours, you get to use your own hours during the day, and then you get to obtain the output of somebody else's hours via your consumption, via your consumption spending. And that is patently unfair. And that's the reason why the basic income always fails, is because essentially, no matter how you dress it up, no matter how you hide it, that stealing has to happen somewhere in the system. What you'll find with basic income is when you start, I think Guy standing into one of the guys who spoke about it, who said that the rich have an independent income, so you should have one too. But if you translate that, what that means is actually the rich can steal from the workers, so you should be able to steal from the workers too. The question then is who do the workers steal from? Do they steal from themselves? How does that work? And so when you drill it down, the basic income, you'll always find that there's a slave class somewhere, somebody who doesn't get the basic income, that's pegged to your currency area somewhere or other, who's actually doing the work and producing the spare surplus output that everybody else nicks. So you'll find that there's a 5-year qualification period for the basic income. So what you've got there is a constant supply of immigrants that you need to keep the system running. Or you're Finland and you're in the Eurozone, so you can nick it from the Greeks. Or that classic one in Canada where they always talk about Manitoba, and they go, yes, that's because the rest of continental Canada was producing the stuff and shipping it into Manitoba. So, of course it'll work if you do that. I mean, there's a very strong argument it would work in the United States, because obviously you can nick all the stuff that you need from China as soon as they've pegged their currency to yours.
Yes. So that's a very strong argument suggesting that's exactly what we have been doing.
Absolutely right.
They've been sitting still for it for some unknown reason. I don't know why.
So that will continue until it stops. And the income guarantee, all these tests, they all fail. They all get cancelled. They all get politically defeated and removed. And the reason is because ultimately it violates this rule of reciprocity that we that's very, very central to the way that human beings operate with each other.
Okay, so you also wrote a very, very good one about, it was entitled "The Job Guarantee, What People Will Do, ?
Mm-hmm.
Now, you were the only one I've ever seen to give the answer that you're about to give to that question. So if you would.
This is where I can't remember that particular blog now. It's typical. I reviewed all my other ones and I didn't read that one. Go on, remind me. What did I say?
Okay, well, what you basically said, which I found very, very compelling, was basically, look, what are you asking us that question for? Do we ask you in the private sector What kinds of new jobs you're going to create later this year or next year or the year after that? I mean, what are you asking this question of the job guarantee set? Of course we'll think up new jobs. It's in the nature of the human beast to think up new jobs. And I thought that was the most brilliant answer to this particular job guarantee question that I have ever heard.
But
all the other people who have answered this question take the bait, and they go and they list. And some people have done a very, very good job at listing public purpose jobs. Actually, Fidel Kaboub does a very good job of answering this, I think. And Pavlina Cherneva also does an excellent job, at actually listing all manner of, of these jobs. But of course, all of the lists can be attacked in various ways because they are closed systems. And you were the only one who gave an open systems reply to it.
Yes, I remember that one day. I mean, that's the thing is, it's quite clearly a trap question, and it's not a question I would I respond to, because ultimately it's a matter of creativity. It's the old paperclip thing. How many uses are there for a paperclip? Well, there are infinite uses for a paperclip. It's just a question of how creative you are. The line I've used with other people as well is, if you can't think of anything that you could do on a job guarantee, then perhaps you need to go on a course on creativity, because obviously you've lost a little bit of something somewhere. So get a bunch of people, human beings, in a room and brainstorm. There's tons of things that can be done. Ultimately, they get created by that discussion that we were talking about earlier, where somebody comes in and says, I would like to do this. And there's a process of negotiation that goes on between you and society as to what you can do to serve others. That's the ultimate, that's the backstop for it, is that you're there to serve others. You're there to give up your time to the service of others. How best can you do that in a manner that's useful for others and also of value to yourself, something that you actually like doing? How can you do that? And that requires a discussion, a conversation. It's got to be, it's got to be tuned to the individual. The job guarantee turns the usual job searching thing on its head. You don't create a job and then look for a person to fill it. You take the person and you create a job to fit them. That's what you have to do. It has to be that way around, so that you solve the search problem that leads to excessive unemployment. If you create jobs and try and fit people to them, you're always going to end up with a list of people who don't fit. So somebody has to do the opposite thing of fitting the jobs to the people. And
you also will always have an authoritarian system where choices are made by the people at the top of the system about what kinds of jobs are going to be available to people in the system. And generally speaking, for most people, they won't be part of the club actually forming jobs. But with the job guarantee program, it's possible for everybody to be a part of the club. It's bottom up.
Yeah, it's bottom up.
And
so you've got this top-down system, bottom-up system, and they meet in the middle. And hopefully, with a bit of luck, if I get my fingers right, it meshes nicely like that, and there's no gaps. And that's what we're after.
That is what we're after, because that is the democratic system, I think. That's the system most compatible and supportive of a democratic society.
Right, that's right. We need that bottom-up system where the representatives actually represent people rather than certain moneyed interests.
Okay, and that's one of the reasons why I love it so much. There was something you did also not too long ago on putting various things together. And it was a really excellent post that put together the job guarantee, the banking system.
Oh, yes.
Also government.
Putting it all together.
Putting it all together, exactly, including a beautiful quote from Kalevsky. That I thought was quite good. And you ended it off with a conclusion And the conclusion was about MMT. You said MMT is a description of how the current fiat monetary system operates.
Mm-hmm.
It takes a different viewpoint on the economic circulation that reveals insights hidden by other viewpoints.
Yeah.
Parenthesis, deliberately so in the case of neoliberalism. Close parenthesis. This reveals new political choices. There is an alternative.
That's right.
For Tia rather than Tina.
There is an alternative. We have an alternative now.
And
we
then
definitely have an alternative.
You specified a number of principles for the alternative, which I thought in some ways really represented a short way of describing what the MMT approach actually provides.
Yeah.
By way of policy prescriptions now. In other words, not so much descriptive aspects of the monetary system, but the policy side. Okay,
what we can actually do with it. Yeah.
Yes. And the first thing you said was monetary policy stabilization has been an utter failure, leading to crippling levels of private debt and inequality.
Mm-hmm.
And then you attacked the one rate to rule them all belief.
Yeah.
Could you explain that a little bit for people?
The one rate to rule them all, which is the this idea that there's a single interest rate that can somehow magically cause the entire economy to converge to some mystical equilibrium. What total nonsense! I mean, really,
yes,
exactly.
One rate to rule them all.
Yeah, it's Lord of the Rings stuff, isn't it? I mean, really.
Yes.
I mean, it's basically fantasy. There are as many rates as there are instruments to have rates on, and they don't have anywhere near as much of an effect on things as people like to believe. I mean, you've only got to spend a little bit of time in business to realize that the amount of interest that's paid on money that's borrowed is probably about, number 30 on the list of things to worry about, right behind sales, and more sales. Yes. It's, I can't imagine how anybody who sits there looking at the risk factors and the spread on sales projections could think that a little tiny sliver of interest this much is going to actually change anything. It's not even anywhere near the real world. It's just ridiculous.
It is. And then you
follow from 0 to 10%, you might get some impact, but moving from 0 to 0.25% is going to have next to no.
You're not going to get any impact. Well,
even at the margins.
Actually, Paul Volcker got some impact, but he had to move from I forget what it was at the beginning, 2% or 3%, all the way up to 20% before he got what he wanted.
Before he got any traction. Yeah, exactly.
Yes, which was ruinous. It was ruinous for the economy. Okay, and so he proved the central bank really can't control the money supply. He engaged in the crucial experiment. He engaged in the crucial experiment. Okay, at Jimmy Carter's expense. When silly Jimmy, appointed him to the Federal Reserve. Okay, and secondly, you said banking can be returned to bowler hat boring.
Bowler hat boring. Yep,
that's a good expression. Bowler hat boring.
Bowler hat boring. Bowler hat boring basically means banks do what banks do, which is they assess projects based upon the cash flow that the project is likely to generate, and they lend money on it. And that's it. There's not really much else for banks to do, which is why it's bowler hat boring. You want to get back to what we would call on our side, I don't know whether you know about Dad's Army, but Captain Mannering was a bank manager. And, all he did was lend money to people if they thought they looked nice. And that's all banks should do. They shouldn't get into all this fancy financial stuff. They should lend money on projects that need financing, that enhance the capital the capital development of the economy. That's their sole purpose, really. And all this other stuff that they do, I think Bill Mitchell mentions that like 95% of the finance industry is a complete waste of time and should be shut down, which probably won't be about.
And then you talked about the Muslin mechanics for banking, puts banks back in their box.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Muslin mechanics, which is very simple, zero interest rate policy, and prescribed bank lending, which means that you can only lend for certain projects. You can't lend for share buybacks. You can't lend for margin trading. You can lend if somebody's got a project that needs funding, whether it's a house that they need to buy or whether it's a business that they need to build. That's the job of the banks. The job of the banks is to give money. You've got to remember, they're state agents. They're there to create money to further the development of the economy, and that's what they should stick at. If they want to do gambling, that's what casinos are for. Go pop down there, you can go.
Yeah, go to the casino. Don't gamble with our public money.
Yeah, use your own money for that. We're not having it. You're not using ours.
So then you said everybody can have a job in the location where they live with the help of the job guarantee.
Yeah, that's its big.
We have talked about that.
We have
quite a bit, but I was intrigued that the way you put it here was business is moved from master to servant.
Mm-hmm.
Business must wander the nations looking for labor to serve it and compete hard to get any.
Yeah.
Or it can engage in actual capitalism and invest in advanced technology and techniques, eliminating jobs while driving forward productivity and our standard of living. I couldn't agree more with you than
Absolutely,
that. I mean, a very Schumpeterian point of view.
But that's the point. I mean, if you think about it at the moment, what's business trying to do? It's trying to turn us all into wanderers across the globe, searching for our next gig. I mean, that's just not human. It needs to be the other way around.
The other way around. Business should be the ones marching.
I mean, we're sat here today now, using advanced technology to talk across continents, and apparently businesses all need to drag everybody into the middle of New York every morning. It just doesn't make any sense. It's. I'm in the business of automation. We were supposed to be all telecottaging by now. Where have they all gone? It just hasn't happened, and it won't happen until somebody forces it to happen. And I suspect the shortage of labour would force businesses to alter their management structures so that they can actually use people in remote locations. Some forward-thinking companies already do that, and we should be bringing those ones to the fore, and the ones that don't do that, they should be just eliminated. I think it's get them out of the way.
Yes, and you sort of topped that off with another great aphorism. I thought, I don't know if I could call it an aphorism or a principle. We can treat businesses like cattle, not pets.
Yeah.
Those that don't make the grade can fail to allow those that do to flourish.
Yeah. Cattle, not pets.
It's very well put. We should treat businesses like cattle, not pets. I couldn't agree more.
The thing is we get better businesses by doing that. It's straightforward. You've got to let the competitive system work if you want to have a competitive system. You've got to allow businesses to compete with each other. You've got to force them to compete with each other, so that anybody who's any price adjusting firm that springs up who tries to put prices up because costs have gone up should fail. They should go bust. They should immediately be outcompeted by a quantity adjusting firm that's innovated and automated and is generating more output with less effort. That's what we need to get a higher standard of living, to get that productivity that we've been desperately short of for nearly a decade now.
Yes, and that's exactly where we ought to be applying the market system, rather than applying it to labor.
That's right. This is what job guarantee does. I mean, the businesses is using labor as the mechanism by which inflation is controlled, and we need to move that now to the capital layer, and we need to start applying the same techniques to them, to force them to innovate and to stop them from driving prices forward. Competition should be intense amongst businesses if we want this system to work. Okay,
and then you went on and you said the gyrations of the economy can be stabilized automatically.
Mm-hmm.
We have no business for central bankers doing their Wizard of Oz routine.
Yes. Behold the Wizard of Oz. Ignore the man behind the curtain. Yeah, we get that little routine every month, don't we? When it's Janet, isn't it, that stands up at the moment and plays her and does her puts a wizard hat on and off she goes, waving her hands in various directions. What's all that about?
I was interested in your view of how to use fiscal policy. Government can adjust fiscal policy with a long-term view once a year in the budget.
Yeah.
And leave the enhanced automatic stabilizers to handle the short-term wiggles in the interim.
Yeah.
And you said very definitively, we need to get people out of the stabilization business.
That's right.
Let the people in the stabilization business, of course, today are supposedly the central bankers.
Yeah.
And leave the enhanced, and let fiscal policy and competitive mechanics handle it instead.
That's right.
That has a certain attractiveness for me.
It does. I mean, that's the thing about, again, we get the job guarantee in place. All of a sudden, you've got people out of the process. There's no politicians involved. All they've done is set the rate. And there's no central bankers involved. They don't have to do anything. They've got a 0% interest rate. Their job is to regulate the banks and stop them doing daft things. The automatic stabilizer, the automatic spend side stabilizer then handles the wiggles across spatially, generationally, and instantly and automatically. There's no delay. There's no sitting there trying to push up private debt through lending or any of that other silliness. It just automatically sorted out. And then discretionary fiscal policy can then just be set on a straightforward tax and spend basis. They're nice and simple, something even Paul Ryan can understand. You if you want to do something, you raise the taxes to do it. And then the job guarantee then stabilizes it in the background. I treat it as like an ice cream sandwich. You have the resources of the nation are allocated first for the required public good, the stuff that you have to do, like, healthcare, for example. And then the private sector gets to work with what's left, and anything the private sector chooses not to use is then picked up by the job guarantee and used for the nice to have public good, which is the stuff that could be left on the shelf if we didn't have the people, if we were in the middle of a boom, and if we're in the middle of a bust, we get all these things sorted out for us. Okay,
so let me ask you, why aren't you more popular with the Austrian economists?
Perhaps my German's not good enough. I don't know.
Well, it seems to me they're the ones who like to look at, the economy as a kind of clockwork with, laissez-faire on the part of the government.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And you're at least willing to allow a laissez-faire for the system, other than a once a year intervention. Of course, there is that, once a year fiscal intervention. But other than that, it's clockwork, right? So why don't they like it?
I don't know. I don't know why they don't like it. I don't know that it's
okay. Well, maybe the next aphorism will explain it. We can contain the nuclear power of capitalism.
Yeah.
And make it work for the public good. It seems to me that notion would not be popular with the Austrians because they don't even believe there is such a thing as the public good, right?
Yes.
So you say
speak English. We invented the damn thing. What are you on about? Losing the name.
And you said MMT shows that the government is in charge of its in its own domain by virtue of its monopoly over the currency.
Yeah.
Government can deploy the resources it requires for the public good, allow the private sector to work its wonders with what is left, and then utilize any remaining capacity with the job guarantee. Yeah. I thought this was a beautiful summary of how things can work. Just those few sentences.
Yeah.
And you said this puts an advanced containment vessel around capitalism.
Yeah, nice and contained.
Greater control an output than ever before. The systems engineer at work.
That's how I see it. I mean, the analogy with nuclear power works quite well. There's some people who want to get rid of it completely. And there's people like me who just want to engineer a better containment vessel. We don't want a 40-year-old Fukushima containment vessel. We want a modern one, a 21st century containment vessel, one with decent job guarantee control rods in there that can handle the cycle. Then we can get the power without the boom. That's what we're trying to get to. Capitalism can be used, it can be controlled, it can be better tailored towards the general public good. You don't have to throw the baby out with the bathwater. We can actually get hold of it and control it. I in that sense, I agree with Keynes when he believed that he could tame capitalism and handle its cycles. I think we can do that. It's just from my perspective, it's a simple matter of engineering, and of course, from your perspective, a matter of getting the politics right and trying to see that we can get the politicians to make the case.
Yes, I think though, getting the politics right requires more than just economics. It requires us to fix a very sick political system.
Absolutely.
We have here.
Yeah.
And I'm not, okay, I know a way to fix it, but I don't know how to get the way to fix it actually funded.
Mm.
So maybe that's a place where I could use some economics help. Okay, but anyway,
I mean, that's the same everywhere, Joe. I'm afraid it's it has become a simple matter of politics now, and that's an oxymoron if ever you've heard one, isn't it?
It is. Okay, and you summarize this by saying government can focus on what it buys and how it buys it.
Yeah.
Once money is out of the picture, we can get back to what economics is supposed to be about: the allocation of actual physical resources to tasks.
Yeah, that's
it.
If
we want more nurses, where are they coming from? If we want buildings, who is going to build them and what with? What are the alternative uses? What are the opportunity costs?
Mm-hmm.
Just because government can command resources doesn't mean it should.
That's right.
Neoliberalism likes to imply that market value and social value are the same. I think I might put this a little differently and say, I'm not sure neoliberalism recognizes any social value. Maybe that's why they think they're the same.
Oh, you cruel person, you.
The MMT view shows they're very different beasts. But public provision has to be assessed politically on its social value and social costs.
That's right. That's right. Yes, we need to. We've got to concentrate on government buying rather than government spending. Because if you think about government buying, this is a more less of a job guarantee thing and more of an MMT point. If you concentrate on government buying, then the system becomes very, very simple. When you run out of things to buy at a price that you're prepared to pay, spending automatically stops. So this idea that a government's can spend an infinite amount, it's like, well, no, it can't, because it runs out of things to buy. So when you run out of things to buy, that's when spending stops. As soon as you start looking at it from the buying side rather than the spending side, the termination condition is clear.
Yes, and the termination condition is not a government solvency. The termination condition is inflation.
The termination condition is, well, it's not even inflation. It's just simply there isn't anything else left to buy. You just look at something and you go, I'm not paying that price for that. And that's what right. Government's not got to chase prices. It mustn't chase prices. It has the power to set prices by simply not spending. When you're not spending, then you've withdrawn money from the economy and prices will fall to your clearance level. So you can set the prices. If I want to construct a hospital for £100 million, then all I have to do is stop all construction in that area. If I stop all construction in that area, then there's going to be no work for the construction workers unless they take my £100 million. So I'll get my building for that amount of money. That's how much power government has if they want to use it. inflation is one of those things. Again, inflation is when somebody decides to pay more for something. So government should not pay more for something. It should be, brutally. It should be brutal about what it pays for stuff for the public good. It should be sitting there and say, no, I'm not paying that. I want to get maximum value for the minimum amount of my money that I'm going to hand out to the economy. We should be taking rather more care of our buyers than perhaps we have done hitherto. And elevate them to a slightly higher. If we put buyers on the same level as we currently put bankers, we might be better off.
Yes, I'm certain we would be better off. And of course, the reason why we haven't been doing that is we have so many public-private partnerships these days, where the private partner in the partnership is setting the prices rather than the government partner in the partnership.
Yeah, we have those private finance initiatives over here. I'm hoping after we leave the European Union, because we have a parliamentary system, that somebody will raise a bill in Parliament to simply have them all cancelled, because that's about as much as they deserve.
Okay, so we've got lots and lots of comments here tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Shall we entertain a few of them?
I think we will do, but I might just have to very quickly switch the power on my computer, otherwise I'm going to lose you. So just give me a second.
Okay, go ahead.
Because I completely forgot to do that earlier. There we go.
Okay, that's fine. Your laptop is a lot better than mine, because I would have been gone in 20 minutes if I'd forgotten to plug it in.
I'm just sat there looking at it thinking, oh dear, I forgot to put the power on. I don't know how we've managed to last an hour and 20 minutes, but there we go.
Okay.
Let's see if we can answer some questions then.
Okay. We're not getting questions, it seems, so much as we're getting comments, and the comments are uniformly favorable.
Very good.
Casey Callahan said, I never heard of safe nuclear.
Right. Haven't you? Okay.
Yeah, I've never heard of safe nuclear either.
Well, it's like anything else. There's life isn't safe, but you can have more safe, and you can have very good safe, but you can't have absolute safe. That's unfortunately, life is dangerous.
Okay, but I don't think I want to
as is capitalism. Even if we contain capitalism, it's still going to be slightly dangerous. You've got a tiger in there. Don't forget.
Yeah, you've got a tiger in there, and you've got a tiger that's constantly trying to escape the constraints of the market.
Absolutely,
yeah. The real secret about capitalism is that the capitalists are constantly trying to destroy the market economy and create a monopoly economy instead.
Absolutely, that's what they do. And the job of the system is to put it. It's a bit like a contained explosions in an internal combustion engine. The job of the system is to put the system back so that it can have another go. So every time somebody tries to create a monopoly, you just stop them, and then you put them back to the bottom of the bar and let them have another
go. Greg Paulson says, philosophically, life from the beginning is competitive. As caring human beings, we need also to care for our fellows. No? Is that not a part of the job guarantee? Have you a comment on that?
I would hope that. I hope I haven't left anybody with the impression that we're not trying to care for each other. But there's the job guarantee is a caring system. It allows everybody to contribute. That's I don't think you can get much more caring than that. It's every individual has got a huge amount of potential in them. We've got to try and grasp that and use it to the best of everybody's advantage. To me, the job guarantee is the ultimate caring system. It's how we say to everybody, you are valuable, you are part of society. you can add something, and we're going to help you do it. It's I would suggest it's one of the most egalitarian ideas that I've ever come across.
Yes, and I share that view, and I also think that actually life from the beginning is not entirely competitive. It seems to be a mix of the competitive and the collaborative.
Yeah.
Okay. And that in the human groups in particular, those that survive are those that are constituted by collaborative individuals. And there appears to be also an evolutionary selection process that has been going on for a very long time that has been favoring traits that are collaborative as opposed to competitive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's it. I mean, competition is inherently wasteful because by definition you're trying to eliminate one of the players. So there's a cost to both sides, and you have to use the right tool for the job in the right situation, I would suggest.
Okay, so Trisha Y. Roberts says, nope, sorry, don't like that analogy. I think she's probably talking about the nuclear energy type of analogy.
Yeah.
She's someone who's very, very environmentally oriented. She's vegan herself and very, very conscious of the empire building aspects of our life internationally, okay, and of specifically the U.S. empire, okay, and its impact all over the world.
Yeah.
She's from Tanzania, and her concern, of course, is very well founded.
Uh-huh.
But anyway, as we move forward, there's some discussion, okay, of MMT as a cult. Okay, and our MMT audience, we have, largely an MMT audience here saying, MMT is not a cult. MMT is not a cult. Of course, we too quite agree that MMT is not a cult.
Yes, we are.
Okay, which is why we carefully go through all the reasoning, and we actually try to be rational about MMT.
Yeah, it's more likely that neoliberalism is a cult, but that's an entirely different debate.
Yes, it is. But I don't know whether that's a cult either, the way cults are normally defined, because there are more than a few people at the core of neoliberalism, I think.
Yes. But it's still a self-referential system, though, isn't it? I mean, where they all effectively vouch for each other and hand each other prizes out.
Okay, I am getting warned by my wife, who is quite right, that as usual I have run overtime because I enjoy these live streams far too much, I think, as I've enjoyed this one. Good,
I'm glad. I was a bit concerned as to whether I'd be able to put on a show, but hopefully I've done the job.
Oh no! I think you've put on quite a show. Thank you very much.
Yes, I do agree with that. I do agree with Mark's comment there. If MMT is a cult, I demand a ceremonial robe. I think I could look quite fetching in a ceremonial robe. Wizard's hat work, wouldn't it?
Oh yeah, Mark Fabian has, I wouldn't say a sharp tongue, I'd say a sharp pen. He used a very sharp pen. Okay, so anyway, I think that people are quite happy, with what we've done.
Good. Yeah, it's Neil, by the way, not Noel.
Yes, it is. It is indeed Neil. Right. Okay. It's Neil Wilson.
I don't mind. I've been called worse than that.
Yes, especially by the Austrians. I've noticed that.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah, there are lots of Austrians who go on to Bill's blog where we see them occasionally. Okay, and then we have the monetary realists who frequent the blog also from time to time, and who don't particularly care for the job guarantee.
No, they wouldn't. No, they think unemployment's good for you. Not quite sure how that works, but there you go. It takes all sorts to make a world, doesn't it?
Yes, I once did a 16-part series on the job guarantee and whether or not it was at the MMT core, which of course I showed. Okay, I think I showed. Okay, that it was at the MMT core, but this was in response to the founding of the monetary realism school and Cullen Roche's insistence that not having a job made one tough. Okay, and you're better able to cope with the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune. So anyway,
I don't know how that works. I've never managed to work that one out. I'm sorry. Just to nicely finish it off, I think the job that we've got is to make sure that politically that everybody's got a living wage job to go to, a decent house to live in, and a pension to look forward to. That's fundamentally what you're over. Not you, Joe, but the average Joe actually wants. Society can surely to devil provide that. So why don't we?
That's right, and also not only a living wage job, but a living pension as well.
Yes, that's right. A pension to look forward to, something that they're prepared to that they can sit there and think, when I've done a good lifetime's work, I'll be looked after by society because I've provided the investment capital for the next generation to carry on where I left off. I don't think it's a particularly difficult concept. I don't quite know why. We've lost it over the last few decades. It's a tragedy, and we need to do something about it.
Yes, it's because of the temporary victory of neoliberalism in the late 70s, okay, in the early 80s.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We lost it. They were able to impose their ideology on all of our societies. And we're still trying to get out from under. So in a sense, we've been trying to go back to the 30s when we overthrew a similar ideology.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, let's hope we don't need a war to get it through this time. Let's hope we can do it sensibly.
Yes, we don't need a great war or a extreme depression. Now, the great crash of 2008 was too close for comfort.
It was. It was indeed.
Very close. Okay, so thank you again, Neil.
Okay, been a pleasure. Thank you very much.
It really is time to say good night.
It is.
And I look forward to another of these sessions soon.
That's good. Yeah, yep. Well, you know where I am when you need me.
Okay, thank you, Neil.
Thanks, Joe. Thank you very much. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.